Have you ever felt like time was slipping away? For Sarah, that feeling became a terrifying reality. It all started with an impulse buy, a magnificent old grandfather clock from a dusty, forgotten antique shop. The shopkeeper, a man with eyes that seemed to hold centuries of secrets, sold it to her for a price that felt too good to be true. And it was. The clock was beautiful, but peculiar. Its hands were frozen, eternally pointing to 11:59, yet strangely, it ticked. A slow, rhythmic heartbeat that filled her apartment with a sense of unease. The pendulum swung, a hypnotic, silent metronome counting down to something. The first night was when the real horror began. As the world outside slipped into the quiet embrace of midnight, something shifted in her apartment. The lights flickered violently, plunging the room into a strobe-like chaos. A deep, unnatural cold seeped into the air, a chill that had nothing to do with the weather and everything to do with the presence. It was then that she heard them. Whispers, faint, ghostly murmurs that slithered from the shadows, seeming to come from the clock itself. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She cautiously approached the clock, its polished glass reflecting her own terrified face. But she wasn't alone in the reflection. Standing just behind her was a figure, tall and gaunt, a silhouette of pure darkness where her empty living room should have been. She spun around, but there was nothing there. Just the cold air and the relentless rhythmic ticking. Sleep offered no escape. Every night was the same. The witching hour would arrive, the lights would dance their frantic jig, the icy cold would return, and the whispers would grow louder, more distinct. The dark figure in the glass became a constant, unwelcome companion in her reflection. Sarah knew she wasn't going crazy. This wasn't a trick of the light. The clock was malevolent. Driven by a mix of fear and a desperate need for answers, she started digging. She spent hours in the library's archives, her fingers tracing old newspaper clippings, searching for any mention of a clock like hers. And then she found it. A story from decades ago, a local mystery that had long gone cold. The headline read, "Family Vanishes Without a Trace." The article detailed the baffling disappearance of the entire Miller family. One moment they were there, and the next they were gone. The police found a house in perfect order, dinner still on the table. There were no signs of a struggle, no ransom notes, nothing. Just one bizarre, inexplicable clue. Every single clock in their house, from the wristwatch on the bedside table to the grand clock in the hall, had stopped at the exact same time, 11:59. A cold dread washed over Sarah as she looked at a faded photograph of the Miller family's living room. There, against the wall, stood her clock. It wasn't just a timepiece. It was a witness, a relic from a scene of unimaginable horror. The truth hit her with the force of a physical blow. This clock didn't just measure time, it consumed it. It trapped the souls of those unfortunate enough to own it. The ticking wasn't the sound of gears and springs. It was the faint, desperate heartbeat of its prisoners. Sarah had to prove it, to show someone, anyone, that she wasn't losing her mind. She set up her camera, aiming it directly at the clock's face, determined to capture the paranormal activity that plagued her nights. As midnight approached, the familiar chill crept in. She pressed record, her hand trembling. She watched the screen, waiting for the flicker of lights, for the dark figure to appear. But this time, something was different. The reflection in the clock's glass wasn't her living room anymore. The image wavered, and through the glass, she saw a different place. An old, dusty room from another era. And in that room stood a family. A man, a woman, two small children. They were pale, their eyes wide with a silent, eternal terror. It was the Millers. And they were staring directly at her. Suddenly, the clock's hands, once frozen, sprang to life. They began to spin backward, faster and faster, a blur of motion. The ticking sound escalated into a deafening roar. a vortex of noise that seemed to pull at the very air around her. A powerful, unseen force grabbed her, yanking her off her feet. She screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the temporal storm erupting from the clock. The world dissolved into a dizzying spiral of light and shadow as she was pulled, inexorably, toward the glass. Her last sensation was of passing through a cold, unyielding surface into a place of utter silence. The next day, Sarah's friend Emily came by, worried after a series of unanswered calls. She found the front door unlocked. "Sarah?" she called out, stepping inside. The apartment was strangely still and covered in a thick layer of dust, as if it had been abandoned for years. A fine gray powder coated every surface, the air thick with the smell of decay and neglect. In the center of the living room stood the grandfather clock, silent for the first time. Its pendulum was still, its hands frozen once more at 11:59. Emily approached it, a knot of dread tightening in her stomach. She peered into the dark, reflective glass. She saw her own worried face looking back, but behind her, in the reflection of the dusty room, stood someone else. It was Sarah, trapped, pale, and ethereal, her mouth open in a silent scream. Her hands pressed against the inside of the glass, begging for help, for release. Emily stared, her mind refusing to process what she was seeing. As her own reflection began to flicker, the clock emitted a single loud chime. The hands jumped forward, landing precisely on 12 o'clock. In that instant, Emily's reflection in the glass vanished completely. The clock stood alone, its glass now showing only the empty, dust-filled room. Miles away, on a quiet, unassuming street, the lights of a forgotten antique shop flickered on. The door creaked open, a small bell chiming softly. The old shopkeeper smiled as a new customer walked in, their eyes immediately drawn to the magnificent grandfather clock standing in the corner. "It's a beautiful piece, isn't it?" the shopkeeper said, his voice a dry rustle of leaves. "A timeless classic." As he spoke, a faint, rhythmic ticking started up once more, a sound like a heartbeat, waiting for its next prisoner in the endless, inescapable cycle of the ticking clock.